Welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Ciara Barsotti and this is my work that you see here. I'd like to share some of my background and some of my thoughts on my work with you. So we'll start at the beginning. 28 years ago today, I was born in Dublin, Ireland to American parents, and we moved back to California when I was a toddler. I come from a long line of painters and artists. My mom was very creative, and my dad's mom was an artist, and her mom, my great-grandma, was also a Southwest landscape painter. I was always an art kid, always drawing and making stuff. And as a little girl, I loved stories about horses and cowboys and Indians and sci-fi and fantasy, which I think I've managed to put all together in the work you see here. Growing up, it was all horses and dragons and aliens, and I always had original characters and narratives running through my head as I drew. But like lots of people, somewhere in high school I lost all sense of who I was and what I was supposed to be doing on this planet. It took too many years and several false starts to get back on track, but I'm here now and I'm proud to share this work with you today. I also have to thank my husband and my friends and family for supporting me during that time and now, because that work is never done. So after a few years of floundering after high school, I enrolled at Carrillo Community College in 2015 with social work as my declared major because that seemed like the noblest thing for me to do with myself. But within a semester I had changed my track to art therapist, and soon after that, studio art was my major. Because I, after just one art class, couldn't keep pretending that I didn't just want to spend all day, every day, alone in a room with paint and a canvas. It was in my first painting class that I discovered the medium you see in all of this work, golden acrylics, which I fell in love with because it could cover so much space with such a saturated color, quickly. I'm a very impatient painter, and compared to the watercolors I had been using. It was also in that painting class that I started my first painting in the series called The Domes, which made it into the San Francisco Bay Area regional semifinals of the Bombay Sapphire Artisan Series, and which now lives with a collector in Oakland, California. Another fateful meeting at Carrillo College was with my teacher, Ann Tierman, who not only introduced me to Maynard Dixon's work, but also hosted a plein air painting trip to the parks of southern Utah, which I knew I just had to go on. So I scrounged up the cash and I went, and I'm so glad I did. Because of the part it played in fixing my course, clearly. I fell in love with the desert on that trip. I never realized it could be so beautiful and so diverse and so magical. You know, before it was all palm trees in Southern California, not the desert. Going on that trip had such a huge impact on my psyche, which I found out later makes sense because I finally made the connection with my great-grandma, Helen Cox, who raised her family on the north rim of the Grand Canyon and was also a Southwest landscape painter, like I mentioned. I'd always seen these paintings hanging in my grandparents' home, and I knew they were by some relative of mine, but after this trip it was like I was seeing them for the first time. And I am happy to say I have some of them hanging in my home. Around this time, my grandpa passed away, and so my aunt was going through his things and found 2 old canvas boards with sketches on them by my great-grandma. And I was able to figure out which landmarks she had intended to paint and finish them. I'm sure my color choices were a little different than she would have picked, and of course I had to add a cowgirl to it. But it was really cool to be able to collaborate with this ancestor that I never got to meet and now felt this really deep connection with. Those paintings are in the family collection now. They're not present, but I do have prints of them, and you can see them and the domes in my online gallery. So this brings me to the question that may be on some of your minds. Why the space cowgirls? Why not just the landscape? By the way, if you have theories about the narratives in these paintings, I love to hear people's ideas about them. So please share them with me before I go into my own theories. Or after this. I'll tell you my theory now. In my mind, the cowgirls are guardians of the land. Particularly in this most recent one with the red cliffs, this idea is really coming into formation for me. That they're not just tourists, they're guardians. They're here traveling back in time to help us remember our relationship with the land and help us think about it for the future. Each painting, of course, has its own micro-narrative, but that's kind of the general theme when it comes to the Cowgirls. The architectural pieces, like the one you see at the end of Zion, have a slightly different storyline, one that takes place in the ancient past. One of my favorite conspiracy theories is the one about ancient aliens, might be familiar, which is what inspired me for these paintings. I like to think that the architectural elements of these are remnants of some other intelligent species who maybe shared the planet with us at one point, maybe still do. I have never seen a UFO, but it's on my bucket list, and I definitely need to spend more time in the desert for more than one reason. On the series as a whole, whether it's a cowgirl going back in time or some alien structure, these paintings have always been about our relationship with the land and our role in its stewardship. I hope that the work makes you look at these familiar landmarks and landscapes in a new way, with a new appreciation, and maybe makes you wonder if there's more going on in this planet than what we can see. We live in a really beautiful world, and it's easy to take for granted, and I would love it if my work inspired people to not only go see these places for themselves and be touched by them, but to think about their role in keeping it beautiful. So I would love to take questions if anyone has any questions about my work or my background, or you are welcome to come find me after this, which is done now.